I would say to not give up. It's kind of cliche, but a lot of newer agents tend to get really overwhelmed in like their first couple years, and I'm fairly new, and I have had moments where I'm like, maybe I can't do this.
Welcome everyone to the Closing Table Podcast, real accounts from real estate professionals, brought to you by WindowStill. I'm your host, Kat Schooler, and today I'm sitting down with real estate agent Kayla Strait. Kayla is with Social House Group in Southeast Michigan, and today Kayla shares her entrepreneurial spirit and why she thinks it's super important for you to go all in on your real estate career. She also shares the best advice she's received from a mentor, like you shouldn't give up in your first year. And then Kayla and I talk about the challenges buyers are facing in the current market. So without further ado, let's chat with Kayla. Kayla, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. I would love to start it off with how you got started in real estate.
Definitely. So I got started out in real estate. I had pondered it for quite a few years. I've been in customer service all my life, probably about 8 or 9 years now. I was working in a credit firm, and I've always had a very entrepreneurial mindset. So I used to do nails. I did a lot of modeling. And then I just always kind of circled back to real estate. So I ended up diving right in. I did my class. I studied for about a month every day for hours. Took my exam, got my license, and I just kind of jumped right in. I went straight into marketing. I found my brokerage, and I just got right into it.
That's awesome. So what made real estate the entrepreneurial journey that you wanted to finally pursue, after kind of doing these other things?
So I had a lot of friends who were in real estate, and I always found myself, asking them a lot of questions. I wanted to know kind of what it was like to be an agent. I've always been interested in houses and selling property. I've always watched like real estate shows my entire life. It was like all my free time went to that. I had a family member who was a real estate agent. I used to go to like showings and stuff with her, which was really fun. And then I don't know, just something about it that I love. You get to work with people. Of course, working for yourself is great, being able to work your own schedule and things like that. But I just love knowing that I'm able to kind of help provide a stress-free process to my clients. So I love being in real estate. You kind of get the customer service aspect and the home aspect of it.
That's so awesome that you had so many mentors, so close at hand, and especially someone who could kind of show you along, someone who could let you shadow them, while they do their day to day.
Yeah, definitely. I only got to go, think I maybe 2 or 3, and I was pretty young, but I just remember being so excited about it. And I remember the general idea of it.
Totally. And so, have you, stayed connected with these people? Have they continued to kind of mentor you now that you're on your own journey?
To be honest, not really. I kind of talk more to my mentor that's through my brokerage. He's been such a big help. He's super great. And that's kind of who I lean on the most throughout my journey in real estate. They've been a really big help, my brokerage and my mentor.
That's so awesome. What would you say is one of the best pieces of advice you've gotten from a mentor in real estate?
I would say to not give up. It's kind of cliche, but a lot of newer agents tend to get really overwhelmed in like their first couple years, and I'm fairly new, and I have had moments where I'm like, maybe I can't do this when I first started and things like that. But my mentor has always kept me focused on the fact that things don't happen overnight, and to never give up. Just like with anything else you do in life, just never give up.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those, Rome wasn't built in a day philosophies, and cliches are cliches for a reason,
Exactly.
Right? These phrases are tried and true. So when you're working with clients now, when you're sitting down and having that initial meeting, like what are you going over with your buyers and sellers? What questions are you asking them? What questions are you hoping they ask you?
So right now I mainly work with buyers. And of course I'm asking them basic questions like criteria, have you been pre-approved, financial status, job status, things like that. But I also want to get to know them and kind of what their lifestyle is like. What does their family look like? What does their day-to-day look like? Because those are definitely important things to consider when helping a client find a home, because you want to make sure it's working for them in all aspects of their lives. And then I also want to give them a chance to get to know me, right? Because I'm a stranger to them, and nobody wants to work with a stranger. So I hope they ask questions where they can kind of get to know me and what I'm like, what my personality is like, and just help them feel comfortable working with me.
So, in working with buyers right now, that's kind of challenging, right? I'm a buyer right now,
Oh.
and we have challenges with inventory, with kind of competition still, even though kind of going into fall tends to be more of a buyer's market. Like, how are you helping your buyers navigate these challenges?
So the biggest thing is making sure that you're there for them and available for them for any questions and concerns they have. I actually just got out of a multiple offer situation with a client, and we were up against like a cash offer. Some of them were over what we were offering. And the biggest thing that I've noticed is communication. You come a lot of situations in this business where communication is not consistent, and that can really affect the outcome of a multiple offer situation. So I think the biggest thing is just being available, making sure that you know what's going on, being there every step of the way to make sure everything's going the way it should be.
And so for that communication, would you say it's just communication between the agent and their client, or even between you as the buyer's agent and the seller's agent as
I
well?
would say with everybody, with the buyer, with the client, the buyer agent, with the seller's agent. Even as far as like the buyer's agent being in contact with the lenders and the inspectors and things like that. I personally like to be there at every appointment, every step of the way, and I'm in contact with everybody throughout the entire process.
That's great. Do you remember your first transaction?
I do. My first transaction was a lease. And I remember she was looking for a home in the area that I had just moved from, which was Warren. And we found her a house that was really close to like where she worked, where her kids went to school, where her husband worked. And it was a great property. And the cool thing was the landlord ended up letting her redo the house however she wanted. So she was able to like redo the kitchen, she redid the landscape, she painted the walls, she did all this great stuff to it, and she plans to be there for a few years, and then I'll be helping her buy a house in the future.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
so
I'm
cool.
excited for that.
For sure. Yeah. Oh, wow. Um, I know I asked you about, kind of some things you've heard from your mentors, but I'm interested in like your experience. What is the biggest lesson you've learned since jumping into real estate?
I think the biggest lesson I've learned, and what I tell everyone, because I get asked a lot, people wondering if they should get into real estate and what it's like. You don't want to get into this business unless you really truly want it and you really care about people. I know a lot of people are kind of like, oh, you get to make your own schedule, be your own boss, you make lots of money, but there's a lot of work that goes into that. And you want to make sure that you always have people's best interests at heart, especially when you're helping them make such a huge investment in their life. And that's probably the biggest takeaway I've came from this, is to just make sure that you're in this for the right reasons, and just continue to work hard, get yourself out there, make sure you're doing the best you can by your clients, and everything will be all right. Everything will work out.
How did you determine kind of your schedule and things like that, right? Because I think this is the shiny object with any kind of freelancing or contract work, that people think like, oh, I can make my own schedule. And, I've spoken to a lot of real estate agents, and I'm sure, you've learned firsthand that yes and no, like, right, especially with your buyers, like showing them houses, you're working on their schedule mixed with the seller's schedule, mixed with like it's a grass is always greener type of a thing. So how did you kind of navigate creating your own schedule and building out your workflow?
So one thing that I had to do was make my calendar my best friend. I put everything in my calendar, even if it's not real estate related, it's in there so that I know what's going on. And even though a lot of people look at it as you work for yourself, I kind of look at it as I work for my clients. So my schedule at the end of the day, we may have to move some things around, but it should be able to accommodate most days that they need me on. My biggest thing is I'm available 24/7 as an agent. So if my clients need to call me at 10 o'clock at night or 10 o'clock in the morning, they can. But you definitely have to work your schedule around other people quite a bit. But that's kind of part of being in the business. And that's why sometimes it is important to go into this being more full-time than part-time, because there's always a risk that you could lose out on a deal because you're not available on the only day that all the other parties are available and things like that. And that's kind of why I jumped right into it, because I didn't want to risk that starting out in the beginning.
And then, so how did you kind of find the confidence to just, jump both feet into the deep end, right? There's no ceiling, but there's also no floor, right? When you're entering an arena like this.
Definitely. So I think something that helped me was with me always having an entrepreneurial mindset and trying to, going down the nail journey and the modeling journey and things like that. Those things kind of helped me build the independence that I needed to start a career that kind of fully relies on me. If I'm not working, nothing's happening. You know what I mean? So I think that kind of helped build my confidence. And I've always been a super hard worker. Being in customer service, you kind of have to be. So it was just something that I was really dedicated to. And I just knew that I needed to do what needed to be done to create the career that I wanted.
I'm so glad you're seeing such success and that you have that level of confidence, and you can be kind of a great role model for the people around you, especially for those curious about jumping into. And I can see how, you have this level of confidence. You're experiencing, success in your first year. Why people around you are curious about what you're doing.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And I think real estate overall is just intriguing to a lot of people. Just being able to kind of see different kinds of homes and work with different kinds of people. I think it's intriguing to a lot of people.
Do you ever you're walking through homes all the time? I feel like it would be almost like when you work retail, right? You're always wanting to shop. Do you kind of feel like in walking through homes all the time that you're like, oh, I could see myself here? Or
Yes.
Do you feel like you're pretty distanced from it? Oh, okay, that's fine.
No, definitely. I actually went and did an open house this previous weekend, and I had a potential buyer come through, and I was just kind of walking them through, talking to them. And I had mentioned that if they didn't buy it and I was in the market, I would buy it. And I have those moments all the time because, we get the chances to see these really beautiful properties. And yeah, I definitely have those moments a lot.
That's so fun. So we kind of talked about challenges I'm seeing. I'm curious from your perspective, what challenges you're seeing in real estate and how you're working to overcome them.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think a challenge that I'm seeing is interest rates. A lot of buyer clients want to wait until interest rates drop, and they are at the lowest that they've been in a while. However, I actually had a buyer who he was persistent on waiting for the market to crash. And while that's a possibility for interest rates to lower even more, sometimes waiting isn't always the best decision for the buyer. You also want to take into consideration, job stability, location, financial status, things like that. But I think that's a big challenge that a lot of agents face is buyers just want to wait on interest rates. I'm sure sellers probably say the same thing sometimes, but I've noticed that a lot is a big challenge is people wanting to wait for interest rates to drop.
Yeah, I think some people think maybe we can time the market. Yes. And while that sounds like a beautiful vision, no one has a crystal ball, right?
Exactly.
Kayla, are there any real estate myths out there that you would like to debunk?
I think something that's kind of considered a myth is that how the market is the only thing that can influence your decision on buying a home. I've said this a couple times, but you want to kind of take into consideration other things too. There's a lot that goes into deciding if you want to buy a home. A big piece of it is being able to get pre-approved at all, because that's going to tell you how much you can actually afford to spend on a home. So I would say that the biggest myth is just people don't want to buy if it's a seller's market because they think it's just the worst idea in the world, but that's not always true.
Totally. Yeah. And I mean, I think like these are like buzzy phrases that get people excited in
Yes,
one way or another. And, people have to move when they have to move,
exactly.
right? Whether you're changing jobs or maybe other family circumstances for
Yeah,
sure. Um, but I mean, to each their own, right? If you don't have one of those circumstances, if nothing is moving you to move.
exactly. Exactly. Everyone has a different situation, a different reason, whether it's downsizing, upsizing, whatever it is. It's always going to depend on their personal situation, no matter what the market's like.
For sure, for sure. Do you have a particularly like memorable time when you've helped someone buy a home?
Um, yes, actually, I'm on the 27th. I have a closing for my fiance's cousin, and going and viewing properties with her was just so fun. She had fell in love with a property that she was kind of settling for, and I was kind of trying to bring that to her attention. So we ended up going to view another property that she just absolutely fell in love with, and the whole process has just went so seamlessly, and I'm just so happy for her, and it's just been a really great experience overall working with her.
Oh, that's so cool that you can help someone so close to
Yeah,
you.
definitely. It's been great. It's been a lot of fun. It's been different because it's family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Well, Kayla, did you set goals for this year? And if so, how are your goals going?
So this year, I actually wanted to start getting into working with sellers a little bit more. So I've been educating myself even further on the selling side of things. I've had actually a couple listing appointments this week. So I think it's going pretty well. I've just been working together with my mentor to learn more about it and still trying to kind of focus on my buyers, and I think it's going pretty well, but that's my biggest goal for this year is to start getting into the selling side as well as the buying side.
Oh, well, congratulations. It sounds like you're halfway
Thank
there,
you. Thank you.
I hope those meetings continue to go well. Is there anything you're looking forward to for the rest of 2024? It doesn't have to be real estate related.
Honestly, I'm just looking forward to it overall. It's been a great year for me this year. Real estate wise and life wise, it's been a great year. I'm excited for the holidays. I love this time of year. Um, so yeah, I'm kind of just looking forward to all of it.
Awesome. Well, Kayla, would you like to or tell people rather how they can find you and work with you, how they can follow you?
Yeah, definitely. My Facebook page is Kayla Strait, Strait, comma realtor, and my Instagram is at Kayla Strait Realtor. And I do have TikTok as well, which is at Kayla Strait.
Awesome. And we'll link those all in the show notes so people can find you with just a click. Kayla, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with me
Yeah, of
today.
course. Thank you for having me. It was great talking to you.
Thank you for listening to the Closing Table podcast brought to you by WindowStill. I'm Kat Schooler. Please be sure you're following our podcast on Apple or Spotify. And if you're part of our YouTube audience, make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you're enjoying our podcast, please feel free to leave us a comment or review. It helps us find more amazing listeners like you. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.